A lot of growing calls over the course of this weekend to end U.S. aid to Egypt. As we learn, at least 1,000 people have been killed since these deadly protests broke out last week. Republican Senator Bob Corker now says, and this is a change of heart for him, that we need to recalibrate the aid to meet our nation's needs. Listen to this.
Fact is that we need to be looking at what is in our national interest. And is it in our national interest to have jihadis in northeastern Sinai that maybe threaten the security of Tennesseans and Americans? Is it in our national interest when we have 4.5% of the population and 22% of the world's economic output to ensure that we have priority passage in the Suez Canal and that we continue to have good jobs for Tennesseans and Americans?
So this year, the U.S. will be sending $1.6 billion to Egypt. The aid has really gone out the door, most of it, already for this year. Tennessee Republican Bob Corker is the ranking member on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he joins me now from his home state. Good morning, Senator. Good to have you here today.
Good morning, Martha. Always good to be with you.
It's great to have you here once again. So talk to me about your change of heart on this.
Well, it's not a big change of heart. It's nuanced. Look, Martha, most of the aid has gone out the door for this year. And so this fall, when we get back, there'll be a debate about Egypt, and hopefully it'll be a good one. But, you know, we certainly need to recalibrate. Our aid to Egypt has been basically static for 35 years. We've been doing the same things year after year after year. I do think that we have national interests there, and I think that our aid ought to be tailored towards those national interests. You just played a clip where I talked about a few of those yesterday. A lot of people, Martha, think that our aid is about winning the goodwill, if you will, of a population. And, you know, I mean, that's nice. It'd be nice if people liked us. But really, our foreign aid is about our national interests. It's about keeping Americans secure. And when you I just drove past in Jordan, meeting with the King of Jordan in the southern part of the country the other day. I just drove by Eilat. I could see it right across the border in Israel. Israel's had missiles heaped at it from the northeast part of the Sinai. Is that something that concerns us, or do we care that people are breeding there that might wish us harm? So the fact is that certainly our aid we're going to suspend some aid. I don't think there's any question about that. But we need to keep lines of communication open. We need to have a relationship with Egypt that continues to push along our country's national interest. And we have national interest there in a country with 85 million people, the most important country in some ways in that region. So again, we're going to recalibrate. I think we will change some things. Do we really need F-16s there? Do we need to focus on Apache helicopters? What is it we need to look at? And my guess is, Martha, that we will tier our aid, that we will look at it based on conditions on the ground, the military acting in a responsible way,
so
it sounds like suppression.
You want to tie strings to the aid. You want to make sure that certain things are met. Do you want some sort of guarantee on the Suez Canal and the Sumed pipeline? And you want it to be more conditions-based, which I understand. Well, Israel obviously does not want to see us pull back on any of this aid. They are, you know, more pleased with that situation in terms of the money flowing there. Also, Saudi Arabia gives a lot more than we do in aid to the Egyptian military. So it looks like, you know, we're in a pretty tight situation in terms of not cutting that off completely.
I think you're exactly right. And, you know, obviously the events of this last week calls us to realize that, look, I think we've overestimated what our leverage was there. We underestimated the leverage of the Saudis and the UAEs. They've pledged $12 billion, and they want the military to crush the Muslim Brotherhood. Let's face it, that's what their focus is. Our position's a little different, and again, I think that we can leverage our position. But Martha, again, we do what we do with 1 to 1.5% of our foreign aid, of our entire federal budget. We do that in large part because we care about the security of our citizens. But as you mentioned, I mean, we have 4.5% of the world's population and 22% of the economic output of the world. And so changes in stability in the world affect our citizens almost more than anyone else. I saw you earlier talked about gasoline prices, for instance. rising gasoline prices because of disruptions in that part of the world over time can end up affecting our citizens more than any when you have a worldwide recession. So again, let's recalibrate. Let's cause our relation not to be quite as static as it's been. Let's focus on our national interests, but let's keep our lines of communication open.
Senator, quickly if you can here, but how do you think the president's doing on handling this situation?
You know, I think he feels like he's in a box. I mean, just as you well described a minute ago, you know, on one hand, the military has acted in ways that we condemn. But candidly, I also condemn what was in essence a political coup by the Muslim Brotherhood. I do. So, you know, I think we understand that the region is in a lot of turmoil. We don't like the actions that have been taken, but we want to keep our lines of communication open. And so I think there's a nuanced approach that we have to have in our national interests. So it's a tough situation. I think we all understand that. I think what we don't want to do, Martha, is cut our nose off to spite our face.
I hear you. Senator Corker, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Big stuff coming in this regard throughout the course of this week, so we'll be watching more closely. Thank you, Senator.